Konbanwa Planeswalkers. You're listening to Radio Kyoto, coming to you from our studios residing on the piping hot side of the multiverse this evening. And this week, we're taking a look ahead into Ravnica Allegiance, diving into our new world and taking a look at it from the limited lens. We'll be breaking up the set review by guild and color. So first, we're going to be looking at the Azorius Uncommons, then the Commons, then the White Uncommons, and lastly, the white commons today. But before we can rate our set, we have to take a look at the rating scale in which we have. So first, the best rating which we can give is a bomb rating. That's for 5. That's reserved for the best cards, usually in rare and mythic, quite rarely in uncommon, and you won't see any of those in common. Influencer. This is a card, as you see it throughout the draft, maybe picks 3 and beyond. It makes it look like it's open, and a guild or color that you want to slide into based on its power and yet still being available. Those are what really makes or breaks our deck. 3, playable. This is the most common ranking, and this is what our deck is mostly comprised of. And ideally, we're trying to catch these on the wheel and filling our deck with as many of these 3s as possible. 2s are fringe. Sometimes these are cyborg cards, or they are your 23rd, 24th card in your deck, and you're trying not to play these. These are the ones you're trying to replace as you get through your 3rd pack. Lastly, we have 1 as a rating for unplayables. Those are kind of rare, few in between, but you'll find those more at the rare level when looking at cards, because those end up being for other versions outside of Limited themselves. And with that, we're going to dive in to our first set review. And we're leading off with the Senate Guild Mage. So this is quite a solid card. You get it for 1 white mana, 1 blue mana, Human Wizard. It's a 2/2. When you tap it, and for a white mana, you can gain 2 life. When you tap it and a blue, you can loot, draw a card, and then discard a card. That's the loot mechanic. This is quite solid because it's good early, as far as you can gain 2 life or help filter out your hand, or it's relevant late as well. And it's not a high mana cost with its activated abilities for 1 mana of either of those colors. This we're going to give a rating of 4, because if you're seeing these, you want to put these in your deck and build around 2 strong activated abilities. Our next card is Dispose Deploy. So that's a split card. Both of them played at instant speed. Depose is tap a creature card and draw a card, and you have to play 1 generic mana and then either 1 white mana or 1 blue mana. So total of 2 mana cost, tap a creature, draw a card. Grading to disperse that one, that's not bad. Tap a creature card, maybe you're preventing something from entering combat. You get to draw a card, pretty good to do on their turn, or you are making more of a tempo play on your turn. You're tapping one of their creatures as you move into attack, replacing this by drawing a card. The deploy side, which you could also cast if you don't want to cast Dispose. Deploy is 2 generic mana, 1 white mana, and 1 blue mana, so for a total of 4 mana. Instant speed. Create 2 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying, and you gain 1 life for each creature you control. So this is pretty decent because at instant speed you can create 2 colorless creatures. At flying, you catch them off guard. You can throw these in as blockers. You gain life for each flying creature you control. So white, blue kind of has a good number of flyers within it. Also decent within Orzhov. Worth mentioning there is they have a lot of afterlifers as well as a part of their mechanics. So keep an eye on this, even if you're within Orzhov. This can help you get over into that realm too. So This one we're going to give a 3.5 because it's pretty solid in the early game, solid a little later as well with the deploy mechanic. It's got versatility and at the very least replaces itself within your hand with the dispose activated um, spell cost. Next card we're looking at is Dovin's Acuity. So for 1 generic mana, 1 white mana, 1 blue mana, 3 total mana, you get Enchantment. When this enchantment enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and draw a card. Whenever you cast an instant spell during your main phase, you may return Dovin's Acuity to its owner's hand. So this is like the misinformation campaign from the previous set, while that card took over in a very controlling fashion. This one is not the 2-for-1 that is. The previous card, you not only drew a card, your opponent discarded a card, so you're attacking their hand. You're getting a +1. They're getting a -1 in the hand. This one's only giving you a +1 and gain 2 life. So not as good. Still okay, but it's a 2. Next card, High Alert. This is for 1 generic mana, 1 white mana, 1 blue mana. So 3 total mana. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So this is enchantment. This stays out there. Creatures you control can attack as though they don't have defender, and then it has another activated ability. Tap 2, generic mana, 1 white, 1 blue, and you can untap target creature. So pretty defensive. You're going to really need to build around this if you're looking to use it. I don't think you want to be using this. This is not the type of Magic you want to be playing. We're going to give this a rating of 1. All right, as a part of the cycle here as well, we have Sphinx of New Prava. So for 2 white mana, 2 blue mana, you get a 4/3 flying vigilance creature. Spells opponents cast that target this creature cost 2 more mana, 2 more generic mana. So this card at 4/3 flyer is good enough, tough enough in the air. You're gonna see a lot of 1 power, 2 power creatures in the air for the most part. Some 3, not a ton out there unless they're being boosted with +1/+1 counters or tricks. But for the most part, you're getting a pretty good rate for a 4/3 flyer with this. It has vigilance, which means you can attack within it. They're gonna have to get this off the board, and they're either gonna do it with some of their flying, maybe even reach creatures, but they're gonna or have to use a removal spell 2 more turns later because of the 2 mana cost. So this is good if you can get it down early. If you got the good fixing, I will say Azorius is probably a slower build. It looks like it may have a tempo aspect, but it's probably better suited for the control aspect. And that means you can have guild gates in a more controlling aspect. And that allows more guild gates, more of the Azorius guild gates in play, allows you to hit this more often on turn 4 than you otherwise would. So for that, we're going to give this a rating of 4. Last one in the uncommon suite for Azorius, we have the Azorius Skyguard, which the guild is named after, and it is a good one. So for 4 generic mana, 1 white mana, 1 blue mana, so for a total of 6 mana, you get a 3/3 flying first strike. So rate, but it also says creatures your opponents control get -1, -0, period. They get it all the time. This is going to be a beast to try to take down. They're going to need to have multiple creatures. I will note, because this is the only first strike creature at common or uncommon, not just the only flying one, this is the only creature that it has first strike. There's some tricks, 1 red one, which we'll see later, but there are not a lot of first striking out there, so this guy's going to have supreme capabilities in the air, in combat. You're going to want to be attacking with this gentleman and he's going to be disabling all your opponents. You're going to want to scoop this guy up. This guy is the best uncommon Azorius. We're going to give him a rating of 4 as well. And note, this is the one of the 6 we reviewed so far. If you saw all of them in a pack, you're probably not gonna. But if you had all these Azorius in there, this is the guy you'd want to take. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the Azorius commons. First one we got here, Law Mage's Binding. It's a 1 generic mana, 1 white mana, 1 blue mana, and it's an enchantment. It's an aura that you slap onto a creature. It has flash, so you can do this at instant speed. And it pretty much just gives them a rest, which means they can't attack or block or use their activated abilities. This is just solid removal. It keeps it on the board, so you got to watch out for any of those Anthem type effects, just like what we saw with the previous Azorius card, because all those minus 1 zeros are going to still be out there. But this will slap down a lot of the creatures out there. This is the best Azorius common, so keep your eye out for this one. We're giving this one a rating of 4. Next, we have the Senate Griffin. This is a 2/3 flyer, costs 2 generic mana, and then hybrid mana, so either a white or blue, and 2 of those. So a total of 4 mana at any of those combination sets. So worth noting that this guy could be placed in Simic. Orzhov would also take it as well. Keep an eye out this for the Simic side. Just noting that because you could do the blues. They don't have a ton of flyers out there in the Simic world. So this is good because at 3/2, it's pretty much trading with something out there in the flying world. So with this, pretty solid. We're going to give it a 3. You're going to want to play this. Next card, we have Sphinx's Insight. So for 2 generic mana, 1 white mana, 1 blue mana, instant speed, draw 2 cards. We'll just stop there. That's a decent rate. Draw 2 cards for 4 mana. These are in other sets. They usually have a little bit of additional add-on. But you know what? If you're drawing 2 cards, not a ton of card draw out there without a downfall. So this is just a good rate that you're going to want to take advantage of. It also has the Guild Mechanic Addendum. If you cast a spell during your main phase, you gain 2 life. You can do that. I'm probably holding on this instant speed and casting it at the end of my opponent's turn. We're giving this a 3.5. You're going to want to play it. You're going to want to lean into this. Good in multiples. And the last common at the Azorius level is the Azorius Guildite Arbiter. So it's a 2/5 vigilance that cannot be blocked. It costs 5 mana, a total of 3 generic mana, 1 white, 1 blue. But at 2/5, vigilance cannot be blocked. This guy can swing in, not tap, still block on the back end, and it can't be blocked. So it's getting in 2 damage. Could even be considered a win condition in slower controlling decks. You're going to want the opponent's field to be clear, and we're going to be giving this guy a 3. You're going to want to be playing this card as you go forth. And that does it for the Azorius commons, and we're going to want to move on now, dive into white. So note these white, while we've been focusing a little bit on the Azorius side, these also swing into the Orzhov Guild, which we'll be taking a look at tomorrow. So blending into our next conversation that we'll be having. So we got the Resolute Watchdog. It's a 1/3 for 1 white mana. Decent. It's got Defender, so a little bit of a drawback, so it's a little bit more on the conservative blocking side. But it has a ability in which you can tap for 1 and sacrifice it. Target creature you control gains indestructible to end a turn. So it will save one of your creatures out there that is looking to be destroyed. Won't prevent from exile, but you're probably using this only if they're targeting your creature that indestructible will save. This is a good aggro blocker, so it's good early, especially in the meta. We'll probably see some aggro out there. And semi-relevant late, especially if you have something. So if you got some good rare that you picked up in pack 1, this guy swings in a little bit better up your ladder, and you'll take him. So with that, we're going to give him a rating of 3 to have in your deck. Next up, we got Sky Tether. This is another aura, a negative aura. So you put this on your opponent's creatures. It gives them Defender and they lose flying. And it costs 1 white mana. So pretty cheap. You use it if you want to take down one of their flyers. You're probably more so in the flying deck if you're either in Orzhov. You got the Afterlife, which we'll take a look at tomorrow. But blue-white flyers. So this is kind of helping you get around something else that's out there. Solid card, just being removal. We're going to give this a rating of 3. You'll want to play 1. Playing 2 is going to be tough because you're going to need flyers to get around this guy. Which means you're going to need to put a premium on creatures and flying creatures. Next, I think this is our only positive enchantment, an aura that you're going to want to put on your own creature. It's a Sentinel's Mark. So for 1 generic mana, 1 white mana, you get this aura. It has flash, so you can play it on your opponent's turn or in combat. Use it as a trick. Gives your creature +1/+2 and has vigilance. So as far as the trick goes, it just gives you a +1/+2. Okay, but the vigilance stays on. So if it's a creature with a big back end, a big toughness, you can keep on swinging in. If you cast this during your main phase and treat it just like a normal aura, this enchanted creature gains lifelink to end a turn. So maybe you need a little bit of life gain. This can help catch you up a little bit. Positive aura, positive trick. Decent, but kind of leaves you open for getting 2 for 1. We're giving this a 2.5. It's okay. It's probably better since it's one of the very few of its type. But having said that, there's a lot of just general enchantments out there that are decent that people are going to be watching out for, and we'll see some of those coming up here. Next, we have the Ministrate of Obligation. This is a 2/1 for 2 generic mana, 1 white mana, has Afterlife of 2. This is awesome. This gives you a total, it's a 4/3 worth of power. 2 of that is flying because of the Afterlife. That is just an awesome rate. It protects you by spanning that across multiple assets, 3 total creatures. This is the best common. You're playing this in Azorius. You're playing this if you're splashing, even though it's just this Orzhov Afterlife 2. Play this card. This is the best common uncommon in white that we got. So with that, we're going to give it a rating of 4. You see this, you want to start looking in white, especially if you've seen it later. We got the Forbidding Spirit next up. So it's 1 generic mana, 2 white mana, so a total of 3 mana. You get a 3/3. So going rate 3/3 for 3. Okay, that's solid. When Forbidding Spirit enters the battlefield, until your next turn, creatures cannot attack you or planeswalkers you control with their creatures unless they play 2 generic mana for each of those creatures. So decent rate for the body. Good when you're on your back heel. Not so helpful when you're aggressive, but if you're in a race, this is awesome because they're tapped out and you're kind of standing them back up. It kind of gives you the chance to get up and over top of them. So if there's aggro out there and they're trying to race, even if you don't want to race, probably not if you're Azorius, maybe even Orzhov is a bit more controlling as well with their removal. You can kind of slow them down, and this is a great stabilizer. So with that, we're going to give this a 3. One of the rare stabilizers that you see out there. Next, Spirit Aspires, 3 generic mana, 1 white, For 2/4 flying, other creatures you control with flying get +0/+1. Solid flying buffer. Decent stats for what it's at. Buffing your other flyers out there. You're going to want to build around with a lot of other flyers. Maybe this be Afterlife and Orzhov, or just a blue-white flyers deck. But if you see this, however, I will note 2/3 flying is kind of the going rate out there. Not a lot of 4 power, so okay. This is going to bump a lot. It's going to be there in defense, and it's just going to bounce off of whatever else is out there. Solid card. We're giving it a 3. Definitely one of the flying staples out there. Next up, we got Angelic Exaltation. So this is 3 generic mana, 1 white mana for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So this is good when you are ahead or tied and you got a pretty good board presence. One of those, just the board's kind of stalled out. This allows you to get big and start coming in and really impose against them. I could see this landsliding a bit, especially if you have a solid creature base. This could be a top end of an aggro deck, where you're just throwing a bunch of small creatures out there and really pushing getting in, especially in an Afterlife deck where you can just attack and still get some value even after it. So I like this card, and we're giving it a solid 3. Next card, Rally to Battle. It's an instant for 3 mana, 1 white mana. Combat Trick. Creatures you control get +1/+3 until end of turn, and you untap them. So you're playing this before blockers are declared, after attackers are declared, and before blockers are declared. You got to leave a lot of mana untapped to be able to do this, though. You keep in mind this card whenever you're playing against white. Just don't be swinging for the fences if they're tapped out, and if they're tapped out on creatures but not on mana, especially on 4 mana here. So keep an eye on this one. It's a lot to keep open, though. It's a lot of setup. You probably got to tap out a good number of creatures to help entice it. You're only getting +1 to kind of ambush them. You're really, if anything, kind of holding off. So it's not great if you're behind. It's better if you're a little bit more even, especially in a race situation. So with that, we're just giving this a 2. Next up, we got Archway Angel. So 6 mana and 1 white mana for an angel, 2/4 flying. When this Archangel enters into the battlefield, you gain 2 life for each gate you control. So 2/4 is just decent stats in this meta. 6 mana, so it's a bit expensive. Not something you want to see in your opening hand. So you don't really want a lot of these, probably just 1. And I wouldn't worry so much about the gain 2 life for each gate you control. And maybe this is in a Simic Splashing White Bant type Gates deck. We'll take a look at some more of the gate cards as we hit some of the other colors. This seems like it's White's version, adding to it, but it's pretty expensive. Having said that, 3/4 flyer is solid. There's not much taking this down, and that we're going to give a 3. You only want 1. You wouldn't want more than that. All right, now we get into the meat and potatoes of it. And if you haven't noticed by now, we're taking a look at our cards by their mana costs. We want to be talking about the earlier cards that you play out and building up towards the more expensive ones. So with that, we got the Twilight Panther. 1 white mana for 1/2. Okay. It's okay. But attack 1 black, and it gets Death Touch until end of turn. So I would only put this in an Orzhov deck. I don't think this has any value unless you're leaving that 1 black mana open. Gain Death Touch, probably more so as a blocker. This goes in your more controlling deck. It's good early and thus late, because you can just throw this out as a blocker and take down early aggro like a Rakdos aggro that's out there, or you can just leave it up for one of their big rule creatures that you want to get in front of. So with that, we're giving this a 3. All right, Arrester's Zeal at 3. Sorry, excuse me, at 1 white mana. It's an instant. It's a trick. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So okay, decent trick just right there. If you cast this during your main phase, that creature gets flying. So I like this because it helps it be a finisher. If you just need that last little bit of mana, they don't have any flyers. However, in this set, there's a good number of flyers, a lot of just sporadic Orzhov Afterlife creatures out there. This one isn't great. It's kind of tough within your Azorius deck because it's probably more controlling. Maybe okay in your Orzhov deck because you get this extra trick in. And they didn't see it coming. They thought you were just sacrificing your creature with Afterlife and you're trying to get your Spirit tokens, but you can surprise them, keep that creature alive, and you still got that Afterlife on the back half of it to go. So with that, we're going to give this a 2, probably more so in your Orzhov deck. So it kind of limits it a little bit, only being more relevant in your one guild. It's okay in Azorius, but you're probably looking to play other cards. Concordia Pegasus. So this is a 1/3 flyer for 1 generic mana and 1 white mana. This is a good rate. 1/3 flyer for 2 mana, you'll take it. This is stonewalling your afterlifers that are trying to attack you. This is stonewalling those ground Rakdos aggro creatures that are out there. Very versatile card. I'd play this on turn 2, every turn 2. I'd pick up as many of these as I possibly could, probably to a limit, 4. Giving it a 3.5 because this is a staple in my white deck in which I want, whether that's Orzhov or Azorius. This is a very flexible card. And Passionate Orator is 1 generic mana, 1 white mana for a 2/2, a bear is what they call that. 2 mana for a 2/2. Okay. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under control, you gain 1 life. All right, so a little bit of upside, kind of incidental. You need to have more creatures than not. Note that this is pretty good with the Orzhov side, so you kind of get 2 creatures. If it's an Afterlife 1, you get the creature itself, you get the Spirit token on the back half. So maybe a little bit of better value there. So solid, maybe more so in Orzhov, you're getting better value. But we're just going to give that a 3. Prowling Caracol, excuse me. 1 generic mana, 1 white mana for a 3/1. Bleh. I mean, this guy, you want to like maybe sit back on defense. He's probably trading with a 1/1, 1/2, 2/1, something not great, and you're maybe not getting the value for it. Not a huge fan. I'd rather have those other 2 drops we just talked about. So with that, this guy gets a rating of 2. All right. Let me see here. Oh, skipped one. Okay. Judgesar's Portal. Okay. Exile target creature control, return it to the battlefield at instant speed under the owner control. It gains first strike until end of turn. 1 generic mana, 1 white mana. This is just blinking your creature. I wouldn't worry about the first strike aspect. Again, we were talking about the only first striker in the set. This is another thing that can give it something first strike. But you blink it, you take it out of combat. You take it out of either attacking or blocking. So it's kind of like a non-bow for itself with that first striking, with the blinking. You're only going to want this for enter the battlefield activations. So you're going to see more of those in your rares and mythics. If you get a rare mythic with a great enter the battlefield, then you're going to want to prioritize this. But otherwise, you're not looking to do so. And we're giving this a 2. All right, now we're on to our summary judgment. So for 1 white mana, 1 generic mana as well. It's 2 total mana. You get an instant. Deals 3 damage to any tapped creature. Okay, so combat, as soon as they attack, dealing 3 damage to something. Addendum. You can cast this during your main phase, and deals 5 damage to a creature instead. Okay, decent. You're probably taking a hit from something if it got tapped. Deal 5 damage to it, but you could deal 5 damage to it. I will note 3 damage kills 76% of the commons and uncommons out there, just the way they are, unadapted and whatever it may be. So a good removal. We like this. I'd take a few of them, and as such, we're going to give this a 3.5. This is probably the second best white common. And you know what? We'll even say it's probably the best common. It's between this and the Pegasus we saw earlier. Those are 1, 2. And then the best as far as best commons go. Third place for best white common. I something below it. This is probably the best one. We'll get Pegasus. We'll say that's second best. Hazda Officer, for 2 generic mana, 1 might mana. You get a 3/2. When this Hazda Officer enters the battlefield, target creature you control gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So 3/2 for 3, not great. Bears take it down. Those 2/2s we were talking about. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So that's more aggro-y. I think this is more of a trap. I don't think this is the card you want, and thus we're going to give that a 2. I think you're going to see a lot of those at the back half of your packs. And this is the card you want in that spot instead. 10th District Veteran, 2 generic mana, 1 white mana, so the exact same. But for 2/3, okay, kind of reverse there. 2 power, 3 toughness, vigilance, and whenever this attacks, untap target creature you control. So it's aggressive, and also helps block, not just for this, but for another creature that you may be attacking with, or something that did not untap during your untap phase because of some trick that was played out there. So this can help you get your defenses back up, and I think that's what White is looking to do. It's much slower, more controlling, less aggressive. This card, you're going to want multiples of these, probably up to 2, 3, maybe. But yeah, at the 3-drop spot, this is the card you want to be looking out for. We'll say this is your third best common. Why not? Bring to Trial, another decent one. This is maybe third or fourth. So Bring to Trial, we should probably talk about it. 2 generic mana, 1 white mana for sorcery speed. Exile target creature with power 4 or greater. So if you're going up against a Gruul monster or Adept monsters, like this is the card you want. A little bit more conditional, because they got to be playing bigger creatures. But with that, you're taking out one of their bosses, and it exiles it. There's some recursion in here that you're going to want to keep an eye out for. So that exile is good. You're probably going to want one of these, maybe 2, but probably just 1. If you're sideboarding, feel free to pick up another. But I'd only be playing 1, and as such, we're going to give that a 3. It's probably the 4th best common, maybe 3rd, somewhere in there. We'll have to see how things play out. Exposure to Daylight, solid card, just in the set. I'm going to tell you right now, we're just going to give this a 3. But for 2 generic mana, white mana, instant speed, so for a total of 3 mana, you could destroy target artifact or enchantment, scry 1. You're going to be destroying enchantments. Just going to tell you right now, there's some boss enchantments out there. There's something being locked down on your creature, scry 1. You can do this at the end of your opponent's end step, right there. It takes some enchantment off of your creature. Boom, you're ready to swing in and attack with it, surprise them. Or they're attacking, you take it off your creature, you throw it in for blocking, you ambush them, get your boss back off of some of that aura removal. So this is, I think I'd look to have at least 1. Probably not having much more than that. While there's some solid enchantments out there, you don't want to be sweating it with this. The Scry 1 is a nice bonus, I'll note too. Civic Stalwart. So now we're on to 4 drops. 3 generic mana, 1 white mana for a 3/3. When this creature enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. So not the greatest pump. 3/3 for 4 mana. You got to be on the attack with this. I don't really see it's not swinging itself. So if you're going to be attacking, you're leaving the 3/3 back on D. Not the greatest. I don't think you could be doing better with 4 mana. So we're giving this just a 2. We're hoping not to play this guy. Syndicate Messenger, though, would be a much happier play. At 3 mana, 1 white mana for a 2/3 flyer with Afterlife of 1. You get it on the back end. So this is already 3/4 worth of power toughness spread across 2 creatures once this dies. 2/3 is standard in flying in this set. So it's going to either bounce off a lot or destroy things underneath it. And when it dies, you get that Afterlife. So I'd keep an eye out for this guy. I'd much rather have him drop into my 4 spot. And we're going to give him a rating of 3. Knights of Sorrow. So this is a 4 and 1 generic mana, so 5 total mana for a 3/3. So not the greatest going rate. Pretty expensive for 5 mana. It can block an additional creature each combat. Afterlife of 1 on itself. So for you're getting it's like 4/4. It's still not great for 4 power, 4 toughness. Blocking additional creature. This is kind of the answer to that go wide. Rakdos or Azorius or Orzhov, probably more likely type of a deck. The thing is, by the time you really got to be out there, like be stabilized by 5 mana. This is going to be a tough one to stabilize at and get out there in time. You're probably going to be pretty behind. That 3 toughness, it's going to mean it's gone. Probably, and it's maybe taking out 1 creature. Going to be hard, maybe 2 if you line it up right, but that's going to be tough because by the time it's 5 mana out there, you're either pretty underwater or just looking to stabilize. So we're giving this a 2. Watchful Giant. This is 5 generic mana and 1 white mana. It's also our last card here. So this is the highest as white goes. 6 total mana for a 3/6. So not a great rate, pretty expensive. But when it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 human creature. So spread across 2 bodies, you get 4/7 worth of damage. Still pretty expensive. Not where you want to be with white. I'm not playing this too much, especially given its cost. And we're going to give that a 2. And with that, we are through Azorius, we are through white, and tomorrow we're going to be seeing you with Orzhov and black. And until then, say Wau Suru, Planeswalkers.